Dana with the data. Dana with the data.
Hi, everybody. So I'm back, me and Diamond Dave. Hi, Diamond Dave.
What's going on, Dana?
How are you?
Doing great, doing great.
So we just did part 1, part 2 of the Black migration.
Okay.
And I wanted you to take time out to introduce us to Dr. Amos Wilson. He is passed on, but I want you to tell us who he was, what he did, what was he trying to tell or educate Black people, and what he meant to you.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I mean to cut you off.
No, I was going to say, so go ahead.
Okay. So Dr. Amos Wilson was, from my understanding, a psychologist, right? Mm-hmm. But he really kind of specialized in how what we call Black psychology. And so we got to kind of understand is that a lot of what we think about our position in the world has been shaped through socialization. And many times we're not aware of that. So we don't necessarily understand that a lot of times what we desire and the decisions that we make, we've been socialized to make these decisions. So as a person that was really trying to understand, one, how I can empower myself and then how I can empower the people around me, right, to put us in a position of power, it took me going on that journey to figure out, right, who Dr. Amos Wilson was and what he was teaching. Because one of the things he really specializes in is what we call power dynamics.
Okay.
And who holds the power, why they hold the power, how they wield the power, and then what you need to do to put yourself in a position of power. So here's something Dr. Amos Wilson got us to really understand. We can take a Black person, whether they be male or female, right? We can give them an equivalent education to an Anglo-Saxon in this society. And when so let's say we give them, K through college, right? Equivalent education, they get the same educational resources, right? And when that particular Black person gets out of that particular education institution, their desires of what they're going to do would be different than the Anglo-Saxon because of they've been socialized. And we have not been socialized to be in a position of power.
Okay.
We've been socialized to avoid power. And we see this a lot on social media. When I read about a Black person will be in a position of power and do something incorrectly, and Black people will jump up and say, well, this is why Black men especially shouldn't be in positions of power. Okay, so you got an Anglo-Saxon in Europe, really a Caucasian, called Putin. When this is over, he's probably going to be responsible for about 500,000 deaths. And none of those people are going to say this is why Caucasian men shouldn't be in a position of power. It's because they've been socialized differently to think about it. You look at the Chinese Communist Party, they're probably responsible for probably close to 100 million Chinese people being dead. Yeah, you're not going to have Chinese people are going to say, this is why Chinese men shouldn't be in a position, because they've been socialized differently. Because they know the only way we win is if our people are in power. Mm-hmm. Good, bad, or indifferent, we don't win if our people are not in a position of power. Because they know how things were before when their people had no power. Mm-hmm. So he got me to really understand that a lot of our situations in America is a byproduct of our psychology, our conditioning, and we've been socialized to be exactly where we're at. So even though we go get the education, we get the car, we get the house, we get this, we stay in the same position because we've been socialized to be in this position. So to change it, you have to start changing your socialization. And that's something he really gets deeply in. So he got a book called Blueprint for Black Power. Mm-hmm. I would not encourage people just to read it. I would encourage them to apply it. Okay. So one of the ways in which I built out a course on helping our people understand power and how to get it is based on a lot of what he has taught. But I noticed that a lot of our people, because of the deep socialization, they can't even psychologically handle being in a real position of power. So we talk about power where I tell a woman what to do, but that's not even real power. I'm talking about having real power, but being comfortable welding it to where you don't think you have imposter syndrome. Because many of us, when we get in a position of real power, male or female, we get imposter syndrome. Why? Because I don't think I should be here. So I sabotage my position because I've been socialized to think I shouldn't be in this position. So what we call power is not even real power. It's power given to you by another group of people to make you feel cool while they have the real power in the world.
Okay. So because he was a psychologist, he can mentally break down the mental dysfunction of Black people or just in society as a whole and kind of help us to reprogram the way we think and the way we see ourselves and what we should be doing to access power or gain power or maintain power or just to flourish?
Yeah, definitely. Because everything, when you're talking about human beings, there is no animal that's easier to train than a human.
Okay.
So all other animals are really harder to train than human beings. So when you're dealing with a human being, you're dealing with a trained animal. People do what they're trained to do. Do they have their own free will? Yes. But the lie about your psychology is that you came out of your mother's uterus with wanting to do these things. No, you've been socialized to do these things. So then the question you want to ask yourself is that, why were you socialized to do what you think you're getting ready to go do? Right. So you got to realize that the condition is deep. So let me give you a real example because to keep it short. If I create a website, right? So I create a website because my goal is to make people come to the website, move to the website, and buy stuff. So what I do is I create the environment, I create the conditions, and then I create the reward or punishment system. Well, that works in every environment. So if I say, Dana, me and you, we're gonna create a country. We're gonna call it Dana's world. And then what we need to do so we can govern this country properly is we create the environment, we create the conditions in the environment, and then we create the reward and the punishment. So then as we bring people into the environment, they have to abide by our conditions or they get punished. If they abide by our conditions properly, they get rewarded. And then we continue to reinforce that to where now they want these things because they want what? The rewards.
Right.
So why do people say, well, I want to do this and this? Because they think it's a psychological reward that they think they're going to get for doing these things. But who taught you from the gate that you want to do these things? Society taught it to you. So then who controls society? So until Black people start looking at things from this perspective, it doesn't matter what they do. They're never going to put themselves in a position of power because they've been psychologically conditioned to not be in power, to be adverse to power, to have imposter syndrome, and not even know what real power looks like.
Right. Which means we're going to continue to keep losing or being at the bottom of the caste system.
Exactly. Because you've been socialized to be at the bottom of the caste system. You've been socialized to think that's where you should be at. And then you've been socialized to fight to see who's going to be at the top or the bottom. So I don't fight with Black people to be at the top or the bottom. I want to actually be at the top. I don't want to be at the top or the bottom. But Black people, especially on the internet, they fight each other. And when you win, you're still at the bottom.
Right.
So what you fighting over? But they don't, this is how deep the socialization is.
Crabs in a barrel mentality.
Yeah, crab. Some people call it crabs in a barrel, but at least the crab is going to get out. You're never going to get out.
Right.
Yeah, that's the thing. So the crab is fighting to get out. They're not fighting to get out. They're fighting to be at the top of a bad situation. They really don't want to be where these other people are at because they don't believe they can manage themselves in this environment because they haven't been socialized to think that's where they should be.
Okay, that's basically what Dr. Amos is trying to get across to us.
He's trying to get, because, so understand, other groups of people would never allow us to have the power over them that they have over us because psychologically they think that is not how the world's supposed to work.
Right.
So we got to understand that this is a socialization game that they're playing. And we talked about earlier, the Chinese Communist Party. It took the Chinese Communist Party to snap their people out of this belief that Anglos should control them.
Okay.
So we're not promoting what they've done, but literally for a very long time, the British and the Americans dictated what happened in that country. It took them to get their people to snap out of it and say, well, no, that's not how things are supposed to work. We're supposed to run this country, not them. We still have parts of the world where other people are content with other people running their country. And they're just fine with it as long as they can do what they want to do. So you got to really understand that this is not just a game.
Countries in Africa.
Yeah, so this is not just a game of military force. It's not just a game. It's really a psychological game that's being played on people.
Right.
And then the psychology is deeper than everything else, because if I can get you to believe that because I'm this, I should do 1, 2, 3, well, then you'll reinforce that in your environment. So then I can now go do the important things of society, which is really run society. And you'll just go do 1, 2, 3 because you think that's what you should do with 1, 2, 3.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
One of his quotes that I always will remember, and it makes sense, is, when it comes to politics, he says, we are the forecasters. The politicians are the presenters.
Yes, ma'am.
But we act like reverse, as if they are the forecasters, the politicians, and we are just presenters. And it's like, no, we the people who vote for these politicians, we are the forecasters. The politicians are the presenters. They present our agenda, our needs to whether it's Congress, the president, the governor, or whatever, because they're supposed to work for us.
Exactly.
And I never will forget that. And that's why I think it's very important for us to know who Dr. Amos is, read his work, because it's for the betterment of us personally and Black people as a whole. So what does Dr. Amos means to you? Because he's someone that you follow. I don't want to say mentor, but because he's no longer here, but somewhat of a mentor to you.
Yeah, so what I would say is that his philosophy really opened a door to get me a higher level of understanding of how to be more effective in the world. So just what you were talking about, I know that it's my responsibility as a citizen to present my agenda to a politician.
Right.
I know it's improper for a politician to say, David, this is what we're going to do for you. No, I'm going to tell you what to do, and either you're going to do it or you're not going to do it. Then I have to create a reward and a punishment for you doing it or you not doing it. Well, so I'm in the state of Georgia, right? A lot of people were upset on social media about Stacey Abrams and what she was going to not do for Black men. My question I asked him is that, what's your agenda? So if you don't have an agenda, you can't get mad if she's not doing what you want her to do because you have not presented an agenda to her. Because you don't believe you should have an agenda. You believe it's the job of the politician to figure out what you want, like you're a 5-year-old and they're the adult. See, this is where we start talking about the socialization. So we have grown men that thinks it's the job of a politician to tell me what I want. I say yes or no like I'm a 5-year-old. And then we're supposed to play this game instead of you sitting down and saying, this is what we want. And if we don't get what we want, this is what's going to happen to you politically. And if we do get what we want, this is how we're going to reward you politically. But because I don't want to do the work to do that, because I don't really think that's my role in society anyway. So you're going to just get a repeat of this thing over and over and over again. But if I think this is how things should go, then that repeat doesn't bother me. So we go back to the socialization. To other groups, it is unacceptable that a politician tells them what they're going to get.
Okay.
To us, it's acceptable. So because it's acceptable, we get the same thing over and over again.
Right, which is basically nothing.
You get nothing. Because now, if you say no to what they propose and they just say, okay, then you get nothing.
Right.
So you just end up with nothing. So they know I can just put anything on the table. It don't have to be what they want. They're going to say no. I say, okay, then I don't have nothing for you. And we just keep pushing on because they're not going to make sure I don't come back because I'm not giving them what they want. With other groups, if you don't give them what they want, your career as a politician is over with.
Right.
Yes,
And Dr. Amos Wilson is basically teaching you why you are socially thinking, behaving, and operating that way. And he just breaks it down why you are socially programmed on why you're doing these things. You're socially programmed on why you're not getting anything done where you live at, why politicians are not doing what they're doing because you are socially programmed to think and behave a certain way. And then he gives the solutions on how to reprogram
yourself. Definitely. One thing he talks about is that we have to be insane to think that this experience is normal. So we've normalized this experience. So that is really a symptom or an indication of our insanity.
Right.
But because everybody does it, it just seems normal.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am. But if you take what we do to other groups, they'd be like, what's wrong with you?
Right.
Because that's abnormal behavior. But to us, regardless of educational level, economic background, is a similar behavior that we've normalized, right? Lack of power, lack of resources, lack of resource control. And we just think this is normal.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, thank you, Diamond Dave.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate you. And tell us your business. You have a website that people will go to. Tell us about it.
Yes, ma'am. So what we figured out is that we got 3 people in our society that have what we call symptoms of income instability. Mm-hmm. And that shows up as I don't make the kind of money that I want to make in my job. It shows up as there's a cap on my income over the year. Most people get maybe a 3% raise over the course of the year. It also shows up as I got to take a lot of time away from my family to make the money that I want to make. So we figured out how to solve that problem for certain people, one that want to do the work, want to apply themselves, leveraging what we call the options market or derivatives market. So it's www.highestpay.online. It's an online training academy. We've had a lot of success. It's a continual process. We do a live stream probably once every 2 weeks. We build a community out based around learning these particular things. Because one thing about me is I'm very much invested in teaching people how their life is impacted by the financial markets and how they can get the life they want to get through the financial markets. But it's for people that want to develop the skills, they want to be consistent, and they want to put the time in. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So you guys have that information, and we will see you guys next week.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, Diamond Dave.
Appreciate it.
Dana with the data. Dana with the data.